President Wilson seemed very dissimilar to Teddy Roosevelt. He was a quiet man who didn't seek the public's attention. But in terms of his conviction, determination, and commitment to progressive causes, Wilson was very much a president in the Roosevelt tradition. Wilson fought hard to lower tariffs, and in 1913 the Underwood Tariff Act was passed. This act eliminated taxes on food, iron, and wool, and dramatically reduced taxes on many other items. This decreased revenue for the federal government. So in 1913, Congress enacted the first federal income tax, as provided for by the 16th Amendment to the Constitution. The income tax marked a change in the way the federal government generated revenue, and a variation of the tax Wilson helped to create is still in use today. Also in 1913, the 17th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified. It provided for the direct election of U.S. senators. Previously, state legislatures had appointed senators, but Wilson gave the American people a chance to choose their senators for themselves. Under Wilson, a more direct democracy was extended to the American people in the form of initiative, referendum, and recall. Initiative gave voters the right to initiate legislation. Referendum allowed for the approval or veto of legislation. Recall enabled voters to remove an elected official from office by special election. These new rights gave citizens an increased say in politics, but Wilson's reforms did not stop with government. Wilson also attacked the banking trust by stripping it of its power. He encouraged Congress to pass the Owen-Glass Act, which created the Federal Reserve System. Basically, the Federal Reserve System established a central federal bank and 12 regional banks that were under the control of a Federal Reserve Board. The board controlled inflation by setting interest rates and adjusting the supply of money. This placed the power of banking at the federal level, rather than leaving it to the money trusts. Wilson then went on to create the Federal Trade Commission in 1914 in order to investigate corporations and put a halt to unfair business practices. Wilson did not stop there. The same year, Congress passed the Clayton Antitrust Act. The law strengthened the existing Sherman Antitrust Act by legally forbidding what were called interlocking directories, meaning that corporate heads could not control more than one company in the same or related fields, where they might be able to create monopolies and fix prices. The Clayton Antitrust Act legalized striking and boycotting, giving a big boost to labor unions, which previously had been seen as a threat to American capitalism. By 1914, war was consuming Europe. President Wilson had won re-election by promising to keep Americans from the battlefield, but German aggression was becoming increasingly hard to ignore. Unrestricted submarine warfare claimed American lives as German subs sank ocean liners and cargo ships with U.S. citizens aboard. It became clear that Wilson was going to have to go back on his word. When the U.S. entered the war in 1917, the progressive era faded as the attention of the nation became more focused on what was going on in Europe than what reforms were left to complete at home. In the 15 to 20-year period that was called the Progressive Era, many new laws were passed with the aim of bettering society. The presidents of the period, particularly Theodore Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson, did much to address the problems that had arisen as the result of unprecedented industrialization. While the problems of monopolies and government corruption had been effectively dealt with, there was still much left to be done. World War I brought about the end of the era, but many of the progressive policies were simply put on hold. The Progressive Era was a crucial period in American history. It created a new, more hands-on role for the federal government and proved that when the American people worked together, they could change society for the better.